the four-flusher. Go on, I gave an order. Ice him. Do it now!
There is no denying that Batman has some of the most iconic villains in comic book history, which brings us to Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski's Batman, the animated series. Spanning across 2 seasons with a total of 85 exhilarating episodes, Batman the Animated Series quickly rose to prominence as one of the most acclaimed animated series of its time because of its groundbreaking storytelling, deep character development, and above all, for bringing villains to the canon in a way never seen before. Mind you, every villain that has been featured in this Emmy-award-winning series has their own unique backstory and motivation, which brings us to the main contents of today's video, which will have us taking a look at 20 of the most underrated villains from the series. Truth be told, there is depth to each of these antagonists, and some might even make you feel sympathetic towards them. Are you ready? Let's find out which villain made it to our list. But before we go into our explanation, we do have one very small request. If you enjoy our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Now, let's begin.
At 3:15. What? You don't remember?
Clock King. We're looking at a criminal obsessed with the accuracy of timing, and it is fitting to state that his meticulously planned crimes are often targeting the mayor of Gotham, Hamilton Hill, who he held completely accountable for ruining his life. Prior to becoming known as the Clock King, Temple Fugate was a businessman who had followed the counsel of Hill, a lawyer at the time, only to end up losing his company as well as his sanity. Clock King is easily one of the most underrated villains of the series. His precision and ability to outsmart the Caped Crusader have made him quite the unique villain. Having appeared in episodes such as The Clock King and Time Out of Joint, the time-obsessed villain is eventually able to warp time and move at light speed. It is sad that his character failed to get the recognition that he truly deserved.
You're a ventriloquist. You're also a lying yellow liver.
The Ventriloquist. Whenever we think of a Batman villain, the thought of an out-of-shape, submissive, bespectacled man who seems to be constantly bullied by his Al Capone-like dummy never really comes to mind. However, despite the fact that Batman has dealt with his fair share of some of the most powerful and demented villains, there is something oddly unsettling about the Ventriloquist, and even you can't deny that. Arnold Wesker as the Ventriloquist is the perfect example of how looks can be deceiving. And trust us when we say that this middle-aged, balding, timid, and physically unimposing man has caused Batman more problems than one could ever think. Truth be told, it is the mental health of the Ventriloquist that takes center stage in the episodes featuring him. The stark contrast between Wesker's meek disposition and his gangster persona creates a compelling dynamic, giving us viewers a peek into the psychological exploration that Batman the Animated Series excelled at. While many would still like to put this character in the back seat, we simply cannot, because of his unpredictable nature. The solitary fact that Wesker suffers from dissociative identity disorder makes him a victim and a villain at the end of the day. Lloyd Ventrix. Ventrix might have appeared in just a single episode of Batman the Animated Series, but there was no stopping this villain from becoming a rather memorable one. The thing about Lloyd Ventrix is that he was just a regular guy who was driven to crime by desperation. Naturally, this made his story a lot more relatable. As seen in the episode titled See No Evil, Ventrix resorts to a special plastic that renders him invisible so that he can pose as his daughter Kimberly's imaginary friend, Mojo, without his former wife's knowledge. Ventrix has been legally barred from visiting his daughter, so he uses the invisibility suit to steal items and give them to his daughter as gifts. Ventrix's activities caught the attention of Batman, who eventually put the ex-convict back into prison. Lloyd Ventrix could have easily been a standout villain, but other antagonists like Joker and Two-Face overshadowed him because of his lack of a long-term presence in Gotham's underworld. That being said, the emotional depth of the episode in which he appeared made him an extremely effective villain from the series, and there are no second thoughts about it.
Nothing. Redclaw is the most ruthless terrorist leader in the world. And we don't even have a picture of the guy.
Redclaw. Redclaw, without a doubt, is one of the most underappreciated antagonists in Batman the Animated Series. We're looking at a villain who founded a global terrorist organization, and her action-packed stories have brought the Dark Knight to London, thereby giving the series one of its most impressive international episodes. While Redclaw's true identity and past continue to remain a mystery, there's no denying that she was a formidable foe whose motivations were global domination. Having made her debut in the two-part episode, The Cat and the Claw, Redclaw left quite the impression. Something about that interesting accent and a Redclaw tattoo on her shoulder made her character quite enigmatic, if we're being honest. To sum things up, she does make a beguiling addition to our list of the most underrated villains from the series.
Of course, you never had to worry about money, Wayne.
Kyodai Ken. Forced to become a thief after he was cast out of the dojo, Kyodai Ken had only one thing in mind, and that was revenge against Bruce Wayne. Ken, who happened to be an old nemesis of Bruce Wayne, has had a personal history with the latter, given that they both trained under Sensei Yoru, a highly sought-after jujutsu master in Japan. Ken's dishonorable ethics got him expelled after Bruce intervened while he was trying to steal Yoru's prized sword. No wonder Ken held Bruce completely accountable, and he became a ninja to exact vengeance solely on Bruce. In the episode titled Day of the Samurai, Ken was also seen performing the death touch on Batman, only to find the Caped Crusader somehow having found a way out of it. While on the face of it, Kyodai Ken was simply a ninja who Batman fought, the episodes featuring this old foe visibly show that the duo goes way back, especially in terms of their history. Baby Doll. Many of you might be wondering how a little girl can pose a threat to the Dark Knight. Mary Louise Dahl was an actress born with a rare condition that prevented her from physically developing after she turned 4 or 5 years old. This means we are basically dealing with a fully grown woman who just looks like a child. In her debut episode, we find Baby Doll abducting the original cast members of her old cancelled sitcom, having grown extremely embittered of their successful lives, and bringing them to the abandoned old set of her TV show to relive the past days. Baby Doll is also seen setting an explosive trap for the cast members, but of course, Batman and Robin show up in the nick of time, and everything is eventually put back in order. Mind you, the whole purpose of the Baby Doll episode is to explore her character. There's no denying that Baby Doll is a deeply tragic character, and given her backstory, she certainly deserves much more recognition. Also, the quick switches between Baby Doll's personality and that of Mary's add a lot to the story, making her both creepy and intimidating. Vertigo. First things first, Count Vertigo's vertigo-inducing powers are highly intriguing and not to be taken lightly at all. We're dealing with a villain whose eyepiece gives off a radiation that ends up distorting one's visual perception along with the sense of balance, thereby creating the illusion that everything around one is topsy-turvy. The fact that Vertigo has the very power to create mental hallucinations and render everyone around him useless makes him quite menacing as a villain. Having appeared in the episode titled Off Balance, it would have been great if his storyline was explored further in a few more episodes. We don't know if he survived after falling into the river below towards the end of the episode. His ultimate fate remains unknown. Sewer King. Sewer King is no regular villain. He's one who has gigantic alligators for pets, and that alone makes him super cool. Besides that name, of course. On a personal level, we have a special place for the episode that features him, because it tends to give us a nostalgic feeling every time we watch it. Coming back to this twisted, self-declared king, he might not be on the main villain roster, but there's no denying that he is absolutely heinous. Sewer King's cruel enslavement and mental abuse of the innocent runaway children show what kind of a vile, disturbed man he truly is. And if the children on top of that dare to disobey him, he has the harshest of punishments in store for them. While there is no denying that the Dark Knight is particularly known for defeating villains and then letting the law do its business, Sewer King's despicable actions infuriated the Caped Crusader to such an extent that, for once, he really wanted to deliver justice himself. Sewer King might be an obscure minor foe, but he is irrefutably one of the most evil villains Batman has faced. Hardac. Hardac was a creation of Dr. Carl Rosum, who, in turn, was the head of Cybertron. Standing for Holographic Analytical Reciprocating Digital Android Computer, this supercomputer was a prototype that was constructed to prove the feasibility of artificial intelligence technology. But when machines start to have a will of their own, that's when things go wrong. Hardac operates on pure, cold logic, no matter how terrifying the outcome is. It wants to achieve perfection by replacing humanity with robotic duplicates. So much so that when its creator tries to deactivate it, Hardac blasts him into unconsciousness and even replaces him with an android. Unlike the other typical Gotham villains, Hardac is not driven by human flaws, and that makes it particularly formidable. While it is not capable of physical movement, don't let that fool you into thinking that it is defenseless. Hardac possesses the supreme power of controlling every android of Cybertron, making them work as its minions. Dr. Hugo Strange. One of the most crucial aspects of operating as a superhero is that a hero protects his secret identity. Naturally, Batman takes this very seriously. However, it is no secret that a number of the Dark Knight's villains know who the man behind the mask is, and Dr. Hugo Strange categorically falls on the list of the villains who know that Batman is Bruce Wayne. Introduced in the episode The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne, Dr. Strange has come up with a radiopathic monitoring device via which he is able to deduce Batman's true identity and attempts to auction the information to Gotham's top crime bosses. Dr. Strange's mind-reading machine that can see thoughts elevates him to a unique tier of villain, representing a whole new level of danger to Batman by exposing him to a world where the Caped Crusader secrecy matters a lot. There were reportedly also plans for Dr. Hugo Strange to return in some unproduced episodes of the series, but sadly, he never came back.
Check the train yards! Find Stromwell and the Batman and get rid of him!
Rupert Thorne. If there's someone who manipulated Gotham's criminal underworld all throughout the series, it has to be conclusively Rupert Thorne. Truth be told, this crime boss is pretty much responsible for Harvey Dent's scarring transformation into Two-Face. Having appeared in quite a few episodes of Batman the Animated Series, Thorne quickly establishes that his role is more of a puppet master behind several schemes. True, he's not exactly as flamboyant as the other Batman villains, but the fact that he personifies deep-seated corruption that plagues Gotham makes him quite a compelling antagonist. Furthermore, the master of manipulation and blackmail is also notable in the series for introducing the chemically enhanced assassin, Bane. In short, defeating Thorne has always been a task on the part of Batman. Maxi Zeus. For someone who has a thunderbolt-shaped lightning staff to electrocute his victims, dresses as well as speaks as the Greek god Zeus, and even has his office building made to look like a Greek temple, he surely does bring a whole new flavor to the series. Maximilian Maxi Zeus, who appeared in the episode Fire from Olympus, believed himself to be untouchable, superior, and godlike, amongst many other things. However, in reality, Maxi was a shipping tycoon who, after starting to lose business, began to handle cargo for the mob. The stress made him suffer a mental breakdown. He became delusional, further developing a god complex, and started believing himself to be the Greek god Zeus. Maxi categorically stands out from the crowd, making a very strong impression for several reasons. For starters, we're dealing with a megalomaniac who believes in his own divinity, and even has a python and a warthog at his disposal. Next, he truly believes that he can wield lightning and commands his thugs as if they were his Olympian subjects. Thirdly, his method of crime involves large-scale disruption thanks to his possession of a fourth-generation energy weapon, the exceedingly dangerous electron discharge cannon. Maxi does not even hesitate once before firing the electron cannon over a police blimp, and he is more than ready to use it on the pitiful mortals so as to make them tremble in fear. Lockup. Introduced in the episode also titled Lockup, Lyall Bolton was the former chief of security at Arkham Asylum, who proved himself to be so malicious that even the Master of Fear, aka the Scarecrow, escaped the facility just to get away from him. Apparently, Bolton pushed the very boundaries of the law to such an extent in order to keep the inmates in check that after a hearing was conducted, it was discovered that he had been torturing, threatening, and assaulting the inmates all in the name of justice. After being fired for using brutal methods to keep the inmates in line, Bolton turned into the vigilante Lockup. Driven by an inflexible, brutal ideology about law and order, his extremist take on justice makes his methods terrifyingly authoritarian. It is fitting to state that he pretty much serves as a dark reflection of Batman. Roland Dagot. By now, it should be clear to you that one does not have to be a superpowered villain to be a part of this list. Well, speaking of Roland Dagot, he's a crooked businessman, who will utilize his position of authority and clout to pursue his own agendas in Gotham. It goes without saying that the large, physically imposing Dagot has appeared in a number of Batman the Animated Series episodes, and it is only fair that we address him as Gotham's Lex Luthor, just that he is a lot more insidious. Dagot is also particularly responsible for creating Clayface, who unquestionably happens to be one of Batman's most visually thrilling enemies. Dagot's immoral business methods give him a strong presence in the series, and it shows to what lengths Dagot will go to prioritize profit and expansion when it comes to his company. Tony Zuko, who we're looking at, happens to be a ruthless, opportunistic mobster, one who is responsible for the death of Robin's parents. Introduced in the two-part titled Robin's Reckoning, Tony Zuko is the perfect example of a villain without a gimmick. The solitary fact that Zuko symbolizes everyday crime and corruption plaguing Gotham City makes him quite a menacing villain at the end of the day. Of course, what makes Zuko even more riveting is his direct connection with Robin's origin story. Even though the character appears in just 2 episodes of the series, he makes sure that his impact is well known. Also, the fact that Zuko represents the mundane, yet utterly vicious face of organized crime that the Dark Knight consistently battles cannot be disregarded, thereby making him one of the most underrated villains from the series. Josiah Wormwood. Also known as the Interrogator, Josiah Wormwood may have been a minor villain who only appeared in 1 episode titled The Cape and Cowl Conspiracy, but that did not stop him from leaving a lasting impression on the series as well as its fanbase for that matter. We are basically looking at a villain, one who has made a career as a torture specialist, as a master manipulator, and a methodical strategist. Wormwood would lure his victims and then entrap them using death traps to pry information out of his victims. Mind you, each of his traps were elaborate, and he would usually end up breaking his victims mentally, one way or another. Believe us when we tell you that the character actually pushed the Caped Crusader to the utmost in order to get his cape and cowl. Had Batman not gained an advantage over him in what happens to be a sheer battle of wits, who knows what would have happened? If you ask us, Josiah Wormwood certainly deserved a lot more screen time than what he was given. Tigris. A creation of the villainous genetic engineer Dr. Emil Dorian, Tigris appeared in the episode Tiger Tiger as a large humanoid cat creature, a man-cat hybrid to be more precise. Tigris was genetically made, keeping in mind that cats were the ultimate creatures on Earth, and it is fitting to admit that Tigris was the pinnacle of Dr. Dorian's work. Possessing superhuman strength and agility along with the sharpest of teeth and claws, Tigris proved to be a deadly fighter, even in hand-to-hand combat. There is also a high chance that he had a heightened immune system, given that he displayed resistance to Batman's gas bombs, which are easily capable of incapacitating other adversaries. Mind you, Tigris was not inherently evil. He was simply following the orders of his creator. While it is a different thing that he ultimately defied his creator and spared the life of Batman, it would have been great if the character returned in another episode. The Mad Bomber. It's a whole different thing to be a fan of your childhood hero, and truth be told, it isn't a bad thing either, even if you're an obsessed fan, as long as you emulate the hero and not pattern yourself after the villain. Meet Theodore Ted Dimer, a toy store owner who was crazy enough to recreate the events of his favorite old TV show episode, bringing fictional crimes into reality. Unlike other villains, who are mostly driven by revenge or, let's say, power, Dimer's motivation stemmed from his unhealthy desire to relive the fictional world that he was simply obsessed with, recreating his childhood villain schemes with deadly real-world consequences, therefore makes him quite a significant underrated villain. Professor Milo. It would not be entirely wrong to say that this twisted chemist acts more as a facilitator for other bigger villains in the series. As seen in the episode Cat Scratch Fever, he engineers a viral plague that threatens the city's animal population while securing profit for Roland Dagot. In the other episode titled Moon of the Wolf, Professor Milo concocts a steroid that transforms ex-Olympic champion Anthony Romulus into a werewolf. Milo represents a whole new kind of threat, highlighting that danger can also come from brilliant minds that are corrupted by greed and lack of moral compass. Dr. Emil Dorian. When it comes to Dr. Emil Dorian, you know it for a fact that he cannot be treated lightly. After all, we're looking at a mad geneticist who briefly transformed Catwoman into a humanoid cat-like creature in an effort to provide his man-cat hybrid Tigris with a mate. Not only does this make Dr. Dorian a notable villain, one who has a disturbing obsession with all things feline, but his chilling disregard for human life truly sets him apart from the more well-known villains. The character may have appeared in just a single episode of the series, but he does make a memorable villain in the vast rogues gallery of Batman, and there are no second thoughts about it. Marvelous verdict. Well, that's all for today, and with this, we finally come to the end of our video here. So which of these underrated villains from Batman the Animated Series do you fancy the most? Hit us with your thoughts in the comments section, and do let us know in case your favorite villain made it to our list. Also, stay tuned with us, as we promise to come back with more exciting content. Until then, goodbye and have a nice one.